While legal pioneers like Mrs. Frankie Muse Freeman pushed for legal and legislative changes to end discrimination, and while people like Judge Bailey, some years later, worked and suffered the effects of tear gas canisters and of exclusion and expulsion, many more African Americans struggled through day-to-day discrimination and endured clashes with racism and violence. And I'm going to come back to Judge Bailey in a bit, but I want to talk about one of the faces, one of the victims, because all of these things that people are talking about in the cases, somewhere in this there are real people who suffered the bite of the dog, who suffered the inhalation of the tear gas, who suffered the beating of the officer's nightsticks, who were jailed. One of the civil rights era's most influential stories, and we're coming up on the 50th anniversary, was that you all have all read about, of 4 little girls killed on Sunday morning, September 15th, 1963, in the basement of the Birmingham 16th Street Baptist Church. That event, the Klansmen who planted those 16 sticks of dynamite under the stairwell of that church had in mind that they would quell that movement, that they would, in essence, kill it. What they did by their acts, they killed some people, but the killing of a person is not enough to kill a movement. What they did through that act was to reinvigorate that movement and make people more determined than ever to end segregation in Birmingham. It drew the attention of a nation on the horrors that people had endured day in and day out in that hotbed of the movement. That single event reverberated around the world and served as a catalyst for decades of direct action in the civil rights movement. In just a moment, we're going to show you a video, and for those who are listening to live streaming, you will not be able to see the video streamed, but you will be able to view that video on the ABA website or on YouTube, and information about that is on our website. Not many people know, when we hear about the 4 girls who were killed, not many people know that there was a 5th girl who was in that basement, who was injured by that blast, who was buried along with the others, but who survived. She survived physically, but she had so much emotional scarring, so much psychological scarring, and she was left, like so many others, to fend for herself in terms of her own healing and her own dealing with the nightmare of that event. And she's with us here today, this courageous woman who survived, Miss Sarah Collins Rudolph. She was later able to confront 2 of the bombers in court some 40 years later as they were brought to justice and were found guilty and received life sentences. Please join me in welcoming Miss Sarah Collins Rudolph. Sarah, September 15th, 1963, you and your family went to church. You and several of your sisters, and I believe some of your brothers. It was Youth Day that Sunday at the church, and you were, along with other people, in the basement of the church. Can you go back to that moment and tell us, what you were doing and what you were feeling just before the terrible events of that day occurred?
I remember while we was in the basement of the church, how we didn't go to our class that morning because we didn't really like our class. It was Ada, my sister Ada, and myself. We didn't like our class, so we stayed there in the basement. And when the Sunday school turned out, I remember how Denise McNair, Cynthia Wesley, Karen Robinson, and my sister, Denise McNair, Cynthia Wesley, Karen Robinson, when they came into the bathroom, my sister Ada was standing by the stained glass window, and I was standing by the sink. So when they came in, they went on to the other side where the stalls was. So when they came out, Ada was standing by the window, so Denise McNair asked Ada to tie the sash on her dress. And when she began to tie the sash, she reached her hands out, and I was looking from the sink toward her, just watching her to see her tie the sash, but I never did get a chance to see her tie because all of a sudden I heard a loud noise, and I didn't know what it was, but I heard someone outside the side say somebody bombed the church. But anyway, when the bomb went off, all I could say was Jesus, because it scared me so bad. And I called out to my sister Addie. I called her name about 3 times, but I didn't get an answer. So I heard this sound. It was so close like the sound was from the inside, but right there where the steps was, it had blew a cradle into the church, and somebody ran inside, and they bought me out. And when they bought me out of the church, they put me in the ambulance and carried me to Hillman Hospital.
Now, I'm sorry, go ahead. So you said that you didn't really remember anything, I don't believe, from the last thing you remembered was when hearing the bomb blast and hearing the calling and the loud sounds, and then you ended up in the hospital, is that correct?
Yeah.
Tell me how you were physically damaged as a result of that bomb. What injuries did you receive?
The glass from the stained glass window, it debris from it blinded me, and I had so many pieces of glasses in my face and in my ears and both of my eyes, because I was really blinded right after the bomb went off.
And how many months did you remain in the hospital?
I remained in the hospital about 2.5 months. And while I was in the hospital, when I got there, at least my sister, she came in, and I overheard her tell someone that I didn't know that Ada was killed, so I had asked her what was Ada. So she told me that Ada had hurt her back, but she would be there to see me tomorrow. But while I laid on the stretcher, I was laying up there waiting for the doctor to come in, because they said the doctor wasn't there. So I laid there and I overheard her tell someone that one of her sisters was killed in the bombing, and I had got all upset. I didn't say anything, but it really upset me because by me being the age of 12, I didn't understand why she was killed.
Now, you were 12 years old at the time. Were you aware of the environment and what was going on in Birmingham at the time these events occurred? And were you aware of why there was so much, animosity or hatred toward blacks in Birmingham? What did you know about that at that time?
Yes, I knew about it. I knew about the marches and how they was protesting to get their civil rights. And they marched. 16th Street Baptist Church was the headquarters where they would meet. And
and that was your church?
Yes, ma'am, 16th Street Baptist Church. And they would leave from there and try to march to get our equal rights and, rights to sit at the lunchroom counters and to use the restrooms and the voting, and so they started marching from there.
Now, after a time when so many of the adults in the movement were being arrested and jailed, there was a minister, Minister Shuttleworth, who decided that one of the strategies might be to get young people, students involved. Did you ever participate in those marches under the direction of Reverend Shuttleworth?
Yes, I remember how my mother would take us to his office he had an office on 4th Avenue downtown, and she would take us there on a Saturday to march. We would get our signs and we would line up in twos and we would march to the Jefferson Courthouse, and we were singing songs like "We Shall Overcome," and we would just sing, and he would lead us there to the courthouse.
Okay, I want to go back to a moment to the time you were in the hospital. You said that you had glass in your eyes. As a result of that, did you suffer any permanent damage to your eyes? And if so, how did that affect you?
Yes, when they had operated on my eyes and they took the bandage off about 2 weeks, about a week later, and when they took the bandage off, the doctor asked me what could I see, and I told him I see a little light out of my left eye, but I was blind in my right eye. So I remember how I used to lay up in the room all the time. And
Did they ultimately remove your eye?
Yes, ma'am. They didn't do it right then, but they told my mother to bring me back in February. Mm-hmm. They was gonna have to remove my right eye so I wouldn't go blind in my left eye.
Okay. And as a young child, with them having removed your eye, you were self-conscious about that, were you not?
Yes, I was very self-conscious because it was a scary thing, to have my right eye move, and really I didn't know what they was gonna do. I didn't know anything about prosthetic or anything then, so I was always nervous and upset and just wondering how would I look with just one eye, and but it just had me all upset, and my nerves started bothering me, and I had so much of fear on the inside. And I remember when I used to go to bed at night, how looked like I felt like things were just crawling on me, and no matter how I was, scratch or anything, I was always the same way. And I found out later that it was my nerves.
Okay, and I know we just have a little bit of time left, so I want to ask you this. You ultimately participated in the trial of Bobby Frank Cherry and I believe Blanton or Cash, one of the others. When you saw them in court after all these years, what reaction did you have to them? When you looked at their faces, what did you see?
Well, when I seen them in court, I was really bitter because these men they spent their lives. It was 63 when the bombing was, but they didn't have their trial until year 202, and I was so bitter about it because they lived their life, but these girls, they didn't get a chance to live their life.
But did it ultimately bring you a sense of closure once they were convicted and spent life in prison?
Yes, it brought me some closure.
Okay.